Good afternoon. Welcome to lunch. Firstly, we'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Fulgent Genetics for generously sponsoring today's lunch. Yeah, yum. As you enjoy your meal, we have a fascinating panel discussion lined up for you. Bridging Innovation, the State of Innovation in California Universities. Moderating this conversation is Dr. Mihri Ozkan, Fellow of the National Academy of Inventors and Professor in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at the University of California, Riverside. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ozkan and our panelists to the stage.
I can say good afternoon because it's lunchtime. And it's a pleasure to welcome you to this exciting panel discussion on bridging innovation, the state of innovation in California universities. As Amanda mentioned, I am Mihri and professor at the University of California, Riverside, and fellow of National Academy of Inventors and also Invention Ambassador. And it's truly an honor to moderate this session with some of California's most distinguished innovation leaders with me. As many of you know, California is home to one of the most vibrant innovation ecosystems in the world. And from Silicon Valley all the way down to San Diego, the state has long been a global benchmark for transforming university research into real-world impact, from life-saving medical breakthroughs and climate solutions to revolutionary platforms in AI, biotech, and beyond. But what makes California different? What's in the DNA of our universities? Our tech transfer offices and our partnerships that allows the ecosystem to thrive, and more importantly, to continue evolving in a world that's rapidly changing. Today's panel brings together three incredible voices who sit at the forefront of this transformation. Dr. Erin, Overstreet, Executive Director of the USC Stevens Center for Innovation, who is redefining how technology transfer can empower faculty and students to create commercial and societal value. Dr. Rosibel, Ochoa, Associate Vice Chancellor of Technology Partnerships at UC Riverside, leading one of the most inclusive and fast-growing university innovation ecosystems in the state. And Dr. Kevin Grimes, co-director of the SPARK program at Stanford, whose model has become a global standard for accelerating early-stage medical discoveries from lab to patient. Together, we'll explore what's working and what's next. From talent pipelines and entrepreneurship training to cross-sector collaborations and equity in innovation, we aim to unpack California's innovation operating system and reflect on how it can inform national strategies. A special thanks to our sponsor, Fulgent Genetics, for supporting this critical conversation. So with that, let's dive in. And before we jump into the panel discussions, I'd like to start by showing a few slides that I have prepared during my initiative, which is called Bridging Innovation Initiative across the California universities. It took about 8 months or so, and visiting campuses individually, discussing with fellows of National Academy of Inventors in these campuses, and also tech transfer office admins in the campuses doing presentations, I end up preparing a nice report about even certain potential differences that I have been seeing even within the California universities. What you see on the slides are the universities that were in this study, the list of the universities. They are state universities, University of California system, 10 campuses, and also including several number of private universities. Just trying to see the differences between the private versus state-supported universities, or even within them. And by presenting all these results, when I visited the campuses, I started building my fans club of universities, or not fans clubs of universities based on the results. And here, the important performance evaluation parameters were number of disclosures, number of new patent applications, total patent licenses, and issued patents and licensing revenues. As you can see here in brief, there are really quite big differences, even within the same University of California system campuses and also within the private universities. I think I have the... So I would like to dive in and give you a snapshot of a couple important parameters for performance evaluations that I believe we should look into. One of them is the licensing revenue. And this is the outcome, pretty much. Some of the campuses, as you have seen, Stanford and UC San Diego and Davis, they are doing quite well. And some others don't, and they have a lot of room to improve. Why the licensing revenue is important is that it gives opportunity to campuses to pay their utility bills and to start new programs, to build new buildings, and also hire new talent. So that's why I think it is important to look into these numbers, not just as a number, but a power provided to individual campuses. And the next slide gives number of startups. Here we see Stanford is on the leading end, and University of California, San Francisco, University of California, Los Angeles, and UCSD are also leading. And based on why, again, the number of startups are important, it comes back to if any of these startups becomes successful, $1 billion unicorns, they usually come back and support the campuses that the original idea initiated within. And on the top of that, some campuses, they take shares with some of the startups that also benefits the campuses. All that pays back to the campus, again, to support everything that I mentioned earlier. I think I can. There you go. So these figures highlight a key point, even within California, often viewed as a single innovation powerhouse. There is significant variation across universities when it comes to patent applications, startup formation, and licensing revenues. These differences raise important questions. What models are working? What structural or cultural barriers still exist? And how can we learn from each other to elevate the entire innovation ecosystem? the summary of all the outcomes, it could be a little bit sour outcomes and conclusion of this 8 months of study, that there were 3 most important parameters that has big impact. Number 1 is the culture of the campus, and operational differences between the Office of Technology Transfer. And secondly is the leadership, the campus leadership, and also the leadership in the College of Engineering and in every office available, including the technology transfer offices, and their philosophy and mission. And the number 3 is local ecosystem. What's the strength and the size of the local ecosystem that can support the technology transfer that is developed on the campuses? With that in mind, I'd now like to invite each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Please keep your introductions to under 1 minute. And as we move into the discussion, I'll ask a series of questions and would appreciate if each panelist could respond in a few minutes. So let's get started with the introductions. Rosibel.
Oh, thank you, Mihri, Dr. Ozkan. Happy to be here, and thank you for also just sharing the data. I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and the role that I'm playing at the University of California in Riverside. UCR is my 3rd innovation ecosystem. I started my career in tech transfer innovation at Georgia Tech here, spent 7 years at Georgia Tech. And then I moved to UC San Diego, where I run entrepreneurship programs in the College of Engineering. And then when the opportunity presented itself to move to Riverside, where you actually found a region of 5 million people, one of the largest and fastest growing population-wise in the country, where the economy is really focused on logistics and agriculture, where there are not that many opportunities for job creation, and that the innovation ecosystem in that region was pretty much non-existent. So my role at UCR for the last almost 10 years next year has been to build that innovation ecosystem. And the tech transfer office's activity does not really reflect the massive amount of investment and activity that has gone into really building a program that is focused on mentorship, access to capital, entrepreneurial training. We manage tech transfer, corporate research, innovation and entrepreneurship, and now economic development. So look forward to talking to you about that journey and that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin?
Hello, everybody. My name is Erin Overstreet, and I'm the executive director of the USC Stevens Center for Innovation, which is the tech transfer office at the University of Southern California. I've spent my tech transfer career primarily in 2 markets, in Texas and in California, so I've got those 2 perspectives to speak about today. Also, it's been Northern California and Southern California now, which are actually very different. And so just by way of background, I do have a PhD in molecular biology from UT Austin, did a short postdoc at UCLA, and then, like a lot of PhDs, tried to figure out what I was going to do with my PhD. And eventually landed on tech transfer. It's sort of a career that I like to say chose me. I didn't necessarily choose it. But I started at the University of California, San Francisco, and that's where I cut my teeth on really the fundamentals of what a good tech transfer office should look like. Of course, it's evolved like everything else, and then I transitioned over to the University of Texas at Austin and became the director of licensing over there. I was there for about 7.5 years. But after about 14 years in tech transfer, I decided I needed to do something different. And I did take the leap into a startup company and tried my hand at being in a drug development company. We did make a lot of success trying to develop a cancer drug. We got seed financing, $5 million. We tried to translate the drug, but it did not work in our hands, which is a common thing that happens. So I'm not ashamed or to say that I failed at doing a startup. I think it's actually a really good experience that I have, and it really helps with the current job that I'm in when I return back into tech transfer to help entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Erin. Kevin?
Yeah, I'm Kevin Grimes. I am a professor in chemical and systems biology at the Stanford School of Medicine. My background, I started out as an academic practitioner of internal medicine, went on an odyssey into medtech and biotech for about 15 years, and came back to the university about 19 years ago to help my co-director, Daria Moshli-Rosen, launch a program called SPARK. And the SPARK program exists to help faculty, grad students, postdocs who have made promising discoveries that could address unmet medical needs that patients have either in the therapeutic or diagnostic space. And we work with them to try and make that a reality over a couple of years. We provide very modest funding, $50,000 per year. We provide education on what it takes to translate your discovery into a drug or a diagnostic, and we provide mentorship primarily from local folks working in the biotech sector to help them move this along. Our outcomes are about 50% success, and we evaluate success as either licensing the technology to a startup company or to an existing company, which happens about 45% of the time, 2/3 of the time to a startup, 1/3 to an existing company, and another 10% are projects that are not going to be financially attractive but will be good for patients, and we try and reduce them to practice and run clinical trials at the university. So that's what I do. I still see patients a day a week, and I teach classes on drug discovery and development.
Thank you for the introductions. Now I would like to get started with our first question to the panel. So how does your institution foster a culture of innovation among faculty and students? What specific programs or incentives have proven most effective?
So, of course, the first one is we're members of the National Academy of the Inventors. You yourself are also a fellow. We have programs that tend to celebrate entrepreneurship, although keep in mind that, this is compared to UCSD, UC Riverside has been a more conservative culture, so it has been a very interesting journey. But for the faculty, I think my focus has been quite a bit of working with our Vice Chancellor for research on delivering what we call seed grants. Seed grants in the order of $100,000 to $200,000 for 1 to 2 years that are multidisciplinary in research, in nature, and that are focused on accelerating research and translation. And they have a small grants like $25,000, $50,000 that he can do 15 to 20 a year, in which really just any idea that the faculty wants to explore that will be the seed to maybe a larger project we actually fund. The second stage in the journey is what we call the entrepreneurial culture and the translation piece. And in the entrepreneurial culture, we focus first on what we call the discovery process, which is focused on entrepreneurial training. And we do that in 2 ways. One is called the Zero to Entrepreneur program. It's almost like a self-guided process of 10 weeks that anybody, not only our students and our faculty, but primarily community members, can actually join, participate, get some touch points with mentors, and then go through this process to determine if they like what they're doing. We have a couple of hundreds already gone through this process in 2 years. The next one is called Innovar, that is in a way is focused more on the commercialization process. So this is the earlier stages of training. Our undergrads students have their own programs called Blackstone. And then when we move to the validation, the technical validation, we have proof of concept programs and really dedicated mentorship by our entrepreneurs in residence that are between 15 and 17 that are consultant to us. The third piece of the journey, of the entrepreneurial journey, is what we call the build to scale and the opportunity gateway, which is now focused on, now a team of mentors work with the entrepreneurial, now building entrepreneurial team is not just really the faculty, but it's really the entrepreneurial team that works with the faculty in the building of the company, and primarily what focus is getting them as soon as possible to customers. And of course, that part of the process is access to capital, which is through SBIRs, STTR, we have a resource center. So we really have to put all the pieces together to get from idea to launch and beyond. We call it extreme handholding for a region that really doesn't have a very robust ecosystem around ourselves. So we had to build it up from the scratch. Erin?
Thanks for that. And thanks for the data, because I think it's a really good background to this question. The University of Southern California is sort of low on all of your slides. And so when we are thinking about at our university how we're going to build a culture of innovation, we're trying to put the pieces together to build that infrastructure, because we're starting from the bottom of your chart, and we all want to be like Stanford. So how do we get there? The first thing is I was brought in 18 months ago to sort of revitalize the tech transfer office. Everybody needs a strong tech transfer office as the underpinning for anything that you want to layer on top of that. And so we're 18 months into this process, hiring, training, getting the education and the word out to the faculty, building relationships. That's where we're starting, managing our budgets and all that thing. But on top of that, we're trying to build a roadmap for faculty who really want to go down this road. So the first thing is they want to get grant funding, 50K, something like that, do some proof of concept work, get their technology moved ahead a little bit. We've got some programs for that. If they want to start a company, we've got funding that they can access to help them put their ducks in a row for like an SBIR grant. And then if they get the company formed and they want to get investment, we actually are now setting up our own internal venture fund where we can participate in a seed round, and we're putting the pieces together to put more venture funds in place outside of the university, but in coordination with what we're doing. So that's going to attract a different investor set. It's a little bit more complicated early days, but I think that these are really the pieces that are going to provide the infrastructure for faculty who want to do this.
Thank you. Kevin?
Sure. So at Stanford, we had a culture of innovation 19 years ago when I came back to the university, but it was almost all in tech. And when we started the Spark program, we were actually called into a meeting with the dean one Saturday morning a few months after we started and met with some senior faculty, including 2 Nobel laureates who wanted us to shut it down. And their feeling was that engaging with people in industry and patenting things, et cetera, would taint our research mission. We managed to convince them that this was really essential for our discoveries to actually benefit patients, to benefit society, to benefit humanity. It was an interesting discussion. It didn't take very long before they saw the light, and we were able to move forward. I think at Stanford, what we've done is founded some organizations that really try and push things forward to facilitate both trainees and faculty and educating them on how to do this process and helping them move things along. And on the medtech side, we have biodesign, which I think is probably the world-class program in educating folks how to think about developing medical devices. And on the therapeutic and diagnostic side, we have the Spark program where we will work with folks to move forward therapeutics. But importantly, both biodesign and Spark, we also teach courses to educate our students, our graduate students in particular, on what the translational process would be in these different areas. It's interesting, I think often when programs are coming into either biodesign or Spark, we can see the faculty being sort of dragged in initially by the student or postdoc. And then they sort of realize, well, wait a minute, I have a lot to learn here. And in general, at academia, Often the faculty will lack the knowledge, the know-how, and even the incentives, because we're promoted based on primarily publications and grant funding, to really become involved in the translational research. And what we try and do is fill that gap. And it's very clear that over 19 years, we have moved the needle significantly, and translational research is now second nature.
All right. So I would like to ask the following question. What changes and improvements would you like to see in the current university IP policies to accelerate the impact?
So I thought a lot about, is it IP policy but versus impact? And if I look at it from an impact perspective, I will say that the first thing I like to focus more is on securing the resources for our faculty, our students, and also community that really accelerate, the risk, the technology, the risk, the opportunities for translation, and taking that innovation to the marketplace or to the society. So right now, to me, the IP is really like an element of the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is how do you deliver products to your customers. So it will be no surprise to you that regularly we're told that when we go to industry or when we go to venture capitalists, all your technology is too early, go and do ABC and come back. And for us, it's something that we continuously have to face. So what we do is that we've assigned that mentor with the faculty or the students and really inject capital and resources and risk that technology and use especially the university and the region almost like a living lab. So then you can do more of the testing and demonstrate that the technology can actually function outside the laboratory. The other thing is that more institutional support. All of our programs are funded by grants, external grants. And so there's no allocation from the campus to actually invest in this type of programs, including the course that I teach on entrepreneurship called Innovar. We fund those programs, either through grants or through some of our royalties in some cases. So there's not a mechanism to actually allocate some of those resources to be focused on innovation at the moment, and that has been a delay. And second, focus more on the pull rather than on the push, right? And I think that, Erin, you mentioned that during the previous panel, right? So it's more like, rather than this is a technology that I created and then we start finding what it is, really more focused on the market pull and the need, the unmet need, rather than on trying to find buyers or users, takers to the technologies.
So when you asked that question about IP policy, I mean, I love what you said, but I took it a little bit more literal. You meant like the IP policy at the university? I wasn't sure, but that's how I'm going to answer the question. And I have a lot of recent experience in this, because when I came to USC, the IP policy was from 2001. And one of the first things the institution wanted me to do was see if I could update it. And it did need updating, but I would also say it was pretty good already. Wasn't bad. But I started to think from an inventor's point of view, like, what do they want to see out of an IP policy? Like, what difference does it really make? And so what I thought was they really need super crystal clear guidelines on, when USC, the institution, owns the IP versus when they might own it. So that gives them, security on how to move forward on their ideas. I think it wasn't crystal clear in the old policy, so I did a lot of updating about that, and it's not going to surprise you how it was updated. It's pretty in line with most IP policies. But there were special circumstances at USC that don't really appear at other universities. Like, students are heavily involved in a lot of different ways. And so when a student is involved, does the university own it? And how can that be clarified? So we attempted to do that, to give people confidence on how they can move forward with their innovation. But the main change that I made, that I think really is going to incentivize innovation, I hope, is to increase the inventor share. At USC, it is 33% currently, and then if this change gets implemented, I hope it does, it'll be 40%. And so that's going to move us up higher in, I don't know if you did a chart on that, but that'll put us in the upper echelon of sharing. And so I really think inventors, I know you guys are in it for the public good, but you also like to get paid. I know you do. And so that's what I did.
Thank you. Kevin?
Okay. Well, I will pick up this thread at Stanford of what goes to the inventors. And when money comes back into the university from something that's been licensed out right now, 15% goes to the Dean of Research of the university, and a significant amount of that will go to the Tech Transfer Office. The remaining 85% is divided among the Dean of the school, where the invention was made, the chair of the department, where the invention was made, and then that last third is divided among the inventors. And that's great. And the reality is, when you're working in the drug space, by the time something becomes an FDA-approved drug, often there have been enough changes to the IP along the way that there may be nothing coming back to the inventors. So if the inventors really care about monetizing their invention, they probably need to do a startup company. And you know, I'll tell you about an exception. We did have an FDA-approved drug last November that is expected to bring in a lot of money to the university. And I want to talk about one other policy at Stanford, which I'd like to see changed, and that is if the university tech transfer office takes a pass on filing the IP, and the inventor then goes ahead and files the IP, Stanford can go back and take ownership of that. We sign a form when we come to the university as a grad student, a postdoc, or a faculty, where all of our inventions, no matter what, are owned by the university. So I would love to see that changed. First of all, because there's an element of unfairness in it. And secondly, I think it discourages sometimes good inventions from seeing the light of day. Because a faculty may not want to put in the $20,000 or $12,000 it takes for a strong patent to move it forward. So I would like to see that changed. One other policy I'd like to see changed, as I mentioned, we have now a few translational programs within the university, but when money comes back into the university, for example, Spark and this new FDA-approved drug, we get absolutely zero back in return. And, you know, as a result, I'm out begging departments and everybody every year to give us funding so that we can support the projects we're taking in from the university. So I would like to see some small percent of licensing income coming back to some of the translational or entrepreneurial programs in the university.
We have problems like that, and I think I've got solutions, so we could talk after.
Excellent.
Yeah.
But you know that this is interesting. You're saying because in the case of one of our inventions, which is a mandarin, essentially it's a patent. One patent has generated over $50 million. The inventors get from the old patent policy. I think they got 50%.
Wow.
So yes, 50%, and he actually takes a percentage of his royalty to his pocket, and that goes and he's providing to the lab. Or in some cases, we actually have situations in which there are multiple inventors that really need to divvy up what the royalties are, let's say 5, 6, 7, and there's nothing coming back, like you indicated, right? So, in this, the fairness and the clarity, I think, is very important, but in some cases, if there's no a tangible patent that is associated and we generate revenue, we manage it as the current patent policy, which is a percentage goes back to the inventor's lab and a percentage goes to the inventor's pocket, even if it's not patent per se. So there's an opportunity to change.
I think you partially answered, the following questions that I have. If you are given the power to redesign the academic tech transfer system from scratch. So what would it look like? So who would like to start?
I'll throw something out there. Redesign tech transfer. I don't know how I would redesign it, but I do know the two biggest limitations on what we can do is our budget. I think I mentioned this in the last panel. We're all on a shoestring budget. Most of us are. I don't know if everyone is. And so I would definitely, if I were in the leadership position, allocate more resources to the operation of tech transfer, be it more people, more bandwidth, more budget for patents. That's a huge limiter on what we can do, and I don't think people fully realize that. We're always having to reframe it, talk around it, reset the idea, but it is huge. And it comes out in everything we do. The second limiter, and I don't know what can be done about this either, is the university isn't the ideal place to innovate. It could be better. It could be more ideal, right? It could be more like a company. Because why isn't it the ideal place to innovate? Because they have to publish. This is, really going against patenting in some ways, right? Because as soon as you publish, you have to file a patent application right before that to protect your IP position. But that starts a clock. And that clock is relentless. It's 30 months, right, until the national phase, provisional, PCT, national phase. University can't support it. We don't have the budget. And when that drop-off happens, the licensability also diminishes. And so I don't know what can be done about it, like I said, but I will tell you I've seen most technologies pass that threshold and not get licensed. And so that's the dynamic. So if I can redesign it, I guess more money and less pressure to publish, early.
Rosibel or Kelly, you want to add anything?
Sure. I would love to see a mandatory mini course for new faculty in STEM, for graduate students, and for postdocs, so that they understand the basics of intellectual property and they don't blow it, either with publications without patenting or public disclosures, or by signing off on an MTA that actually hands off their discovery to some company which they didn't actually understand when they signed the form, et cetera. I think it would be really important to do that. And the other part of this course would be to educate them about what the resources are within the university and in the local ecosystem that would help them if they would like to take their discovery and move it towards, a product to benefit society.
So in our case, our tech transfer, it's called technology commercialization, is integrated with our corporate research, I&E, innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic development. We are all into one integrated unit. And I think that the advantage of having that is that to move away, when I was, for example, in tech transfer alone, it was such a silo and very much focused on the legalities and the transaction, and less on the business opportunity, the business creation, and really the impact that this discovery will do. And so what to me, I like to see more and more tech transfer as an enabler and a facilitator, and as quickly as possible, 3 months or less if possible, to really get into the harder work, which is the actually building the company. So whatever we can do, and in a way, sometimes it takes a mindset change from our licensing team that really, yes, all of these things, you need to check all the boxes, but really the most important thing is, what is it from the perspective of your licensee or your corporate partner that you need to deliver to add value so they can actually turn this discovery into a product that at the end is going to create impact back to the university. So that's kind of what I'd like to see more.
All right. Thank you very much. And in the interest of time, I want to move to the last question. And that is, what do you envision as the next big opportunity as a Californian university, or threat in university-led innovation over the next 5 years?
So For me, of course, the threat is going to be whether or not we continue to have adequate funding for the National Science Foundation or the National Institutes of Health. These are the real drivers of innovation in the universities. And maintaining the current level of funding is going to be very important if we're going to continue to be innovating at the rate we are. It's also going to be very important if we're going to attract the best minds to come to the United States or to grow out of the universities in the United States and really continue to make this happen. I think innovation and economic growth is a critical linchpin. In terms of opportunities, of course, I think with some of the new technologies, omics, AI, et cetera, hopefully we're going to become more efficient at identifying opportunities to move forward. I think almost certainly we will. And I think there are certain things that we could address also as policies. You know, we need a good FDA assessment of how we might have approval policies for drugs that prevent disease as opposed to drugs that treat existing diseases. If you have to wait 15 years for a clinical endpoint, that's not going to be feasible for a company. But oftentimes there are surrogate endpoints that will give you a very good idea that things are going to work. I think we are already moving towards much more efficient clinical trials, which is certainly the most expensive part of getting therapeutics to patients, doing platform trials and basket trials, et cetera. So I think there's a lot to be excited about and to look forward to.
Okay, crystal ball. I'm not very good with crystal ball questions, so bear with me. I guess I think that because of the funding situation, my hope is that universities start creating new ways to interact with industry. I don't know what that looks like exactly, but I think we need to try to be creative and flexible about, what we put in terms of IP terms in new industry partnerships that might attract industry more. I will tell you, we are working on partnering right now holistically with certain companies that can help our institution function better. So for example, we've got a big partnership we're working on with a precision medicine company to help integrate into various facets of our medical school right now. And it is a holistic partnership. There's licensing involved, there's sponsored research involved, there's integration to our EMR involved, and there's services involved. So it really is a sweeping type of relationship, and it involves the tech transfer office and trying to come up with IP terms that are fitting. And so I think more of these kinds of industry integrations might be on the menu. That's my hope if we need to make up for lost funding.
So, of course, as everybody has already mentioned, AI is transforming pretty much everything, the way we look at, not only within the operations of our offices, and also the opportunity to actually accelerate the process of invention, the registration, the finding new business models, and identify how you can actually reduce the timeline to discovery and to productization using all these tools, which is great. But I think that from a more because of what we're seeing right now at the national level, and also the way universities, we play a very important role in our community. And each community is different, and we all that, but the research universities are critical in the whole ecosystem of the region. And what I've seen, particularly in the last few years, is how important the universities play a role in our community, not only, and how important it is for us to be engaged in policy development, in partnering with counties, with cities, with the state. And that has led a lot of very successful outcomes for us, and really investment from the community in us to actually continue and strengthen that partnership that has led to significant investment. So what I see now, for example, at the national level, this emphasis around, let's say, advanced manufacturing. Rather than saying that's a huge opportunity, and there are 1,400 small manufacturers in our region that are really almost artisanal, and they need to migrate. This is a huge opportunity for the university to actually upskill all these innovators, get them to where they can be, for the country to compete. So lots of opportunities for as long as we adapt our magnificent resources and the talent to actually meet the needs that the region is facing and also our country.
All right. I would like to thank all our panelists for a dynamic and insightful discussion. And today, we heard powerful examples of how California universities are fostering innovation. And we also discussed the importance of rethinking tech transfer models and preparing for the next wave of opportunities and challenges in university-led innovation. So what is clear is that while each institution has a unique path, we all share a common goal: turning research into real-world impact. So I would like to thank again Erin, Rosibel, and Kevin for sharing your experiences, and to our sponsor, Fulgent Genetics, for supporting this important conversation. So let's keep the momentum going and enjoy the rest of the FNAI annual meeting. And I would like to congratulate the new inductees as members and fellows to Academy, as one of the fellow of Academy myself. Thank you for listening during your lunch. I hope you enjoyed and learned how California operates, and also maybe some rooms to even improve further. Thank you so much.